You remember the movie Jerry Maguire, where she says, "You had me at hello." By the third project, you should have your person who's reviewing the portfolio interested in. If not, they're not going to be interested, no matter if it's 20 projects. Don't expect them to be interested by the last project.
Subscribe to Blessedarch for your dose of art, architecture, and design, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. So hey guys, welcome back to the very first episode of BA Portfolio Review. We have Viviano with us, and we together are going to be discussing 3 portfolios today. So first of all, Viviano, thank you for being here.
Hey Rishabh, great to be back with you.
Alright, but before we start this video and before we start discussing the portfolios, let me tell you a little bit about Viviano. Now, a lot of you might know Viviano already by the interview that I did with him. But those of you who have not seen that video, let me tell you a little bit about him. Viviano is an architect from Mexico who has spent 5 years working at OMA with Rem Koolhaas. After he left OMA, he has now started his own architectural firm called Mass Operations. He also has a master's degree from SciArc, and today he not only works as an architect, but he also teaches in many places. So Viviano has both a lot of academic knowledge and a lot of work experience in the field. So before we can start our portfolios today, let us first get to know what Viviano looks for in a portfolio. So Viviano, according to you, what are the elements that make a good portfolio?
Well, I guess elements that make a portfolio is, I think, a broader topic. But what I look for a portfolio when I receive them in my office and we're doing the hiring process, I think would center around 4 things. Number 1 would be organization skills. As a designer, as an architect, and when you're seeking a position, whether it being applying at a office or a studio, or applying at a master's program, PhD, etc., you want to really show all of your work. And usually we have a lot of work to show. And for each one project, you want to show a lot of images and models and stuff. So you need to kind of have the ability to compress the information, to digest it, to kind of boil down to the most important aspects of the project, and then organize them neatly. And then it's a sequence of projects. So it all has to do with organization at the end. It's this ability to compress, downsize, minimal, most important, and well organized. So that's the first thing. Obviously, the second thing with that has to do with graphic design. So a portfolio, a lot of it, unfortunately, is graphic design. And you need to be careful that the graphic design doesn't overpower your designs, which happens a lot, unfortunately. So you can have a beautifully designed portfolio with not that great conceptual work. However, that person can come into the office and I can try to teach them conceptual way of thinking, but they have a really good graphic design. So that's good. Third point is their designs. So how do you think about design? How do you conceptualize and so forth? And I think that the fourth one is their ability to document a project. There's a difference between good graphic design and good documentation skills. And so I'm talking about how to do a exploded axonometric, how to do a perspective section, and detailed drawings for construction documents, for example. So I think around those 4 aspects is what I'm really looking for in a portfolio.
All right, that sounds great. And I would actually be picking your brain throughout our conversation, throughout discussing your portfolios. And we'll go deeper into the elements that you just put out as well. And I have some more questions for you as we go ahead as well. All right, so we're going to start with our first portfolio for the day. And that is the portfolio of Anuj Modi.
Okay, first impressions with Anuj. First of all, white background, which is what I really like to see in portfolios. I tend to not want to see black backgrounds, and I tend to not want to see textured backgrounds. I think it distracts from the designs. Great to see a white background portfolio. I think perhaps in a way it's too many projects. Anuj here has a large, and I'm flipping through it right now, has a large index, which is great. And the projects are numbered according to their page insertion, which again is great. Many times you forget to number your pages or they're wrong. And it's really important for your interview process, because if you do get selected, which is, the first step, and you get asked to do an interview, a person like myself who's interviewing is going to ask you, so on page 15, your project so-and-so, how did you do that by yourself? Was that in collaboration? If there's no page number, and I say, oh, the diagram on the left between so-and-so project, it becomes harder. So always number your pages. But that comment is that I think it's a little bit too much. I would never show more than 6 projects. The other thing is, Anush breaks a format. So I think of the 3 portfolios that I got to review that you sent me, this was the most successful format. It seems to be an extended A3. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's what best fits the screen. And your portfolio is going to be reviewed on a screen. And it should feel like a book, but it's going to be reviewed on a screen. So in that sense, it's great. But I'm talking about the layout format inside. Anush establishes a very rigorous format, but then it's broken. If you're going to establish a layout format, don't break it. And if you're going to go from one topic to another, say like CV is one topic, my projects are another project, and then my presentation skills are another one, include covers. In that sense, that's my initial reactions to the portfolio.
Okay. So let us now, what we'll do is we sort of will go page by page, sort of looking at the folio. So for the second page, I really like that it is a very clean way of just putting down what your education, like the CV part, it's a very, and the index part. I think it's a very clean way of showing. It is much cleaner than what I did in my portfolio. I think mine would be one of the portfolio that would be immediately thrown out. But I really like how clean everything is here. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, again, organization is very important. Graphic design is very important. Cleanliness, exactly right. It's a white background. It has a little bit of a kind of like a gray hatch lines. That's great. It works. It doesn't distract. There's an image of a project. Perhaps that was not required, or there's an image that's not needed. An image I am lacking though, unfortunately, is a photo. So you're hearing it from me, someone that was reviewing portfolios inside OMA, and I review portfolios in my office when we're hiring, which is not that very often, but I do. And if I'm going to hire you, I want to see your face.
I think here he removed it for the video, but I think I really understand what you mean. But again, what you said about not being shy is, I think, then fits in here.
Well, just a note to that. And I make that comment as a general comment, not only to Anush, regardless if he removed it just for the purposes of this video or not.
All right. So let's move on to our first project. All right. Your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, I really appreciated in a digital form to look at the printout. So I can tell a lot about, without getting into the project, because it's too small scale to understand it. Honestly, when I'm reviewing this, I'm going to see this in 2 seconds. What I see here is the ability to lay out a page for a project. That's the layout. And I see that this is a larger compilation that ended up in a book. I hope so. I do see it's a thesis project, so I'm assuming it is a larger project. And it's just too big of information collected in research and so forth to properly talk about the design. But the layout of the page is very nice. This light gray works perfectly. There was care taken in the positioning of the booklet. You know, it's lifted, there's a shadow. It's great. In that sense, it's a very first nice page. And this sets out the layout for each project, right? So you've got index information on the left. Who's the mentor? Was it part of a university project? What semester was it? A small description, and then the images of the project. So it's a great starting point for the portfolio.
I saw that this project was ongoing, and I think that is why he still doesn't have, everything in here. But what I wanted to ask was, then would you appreciate, I mean, I understand what you were talking about, establishing the layout, and from here forth you understand, and this is how he continues throughout the portfolio as well, is where he has this left hand side column, he has a middle column, and then he has a larger space, and that continues throughout the project. But as a whole, would you want this project in a portfolio where you can't maybe see what is in it? Like,
doesn't matter. Like I said, when we had a last interview, there's 2 readings for the portfolio. One is incredibly fast. and I'm skipping through. So I'm going to share has 22 pages. I'm going to see 22 pages in 6 seconds. And I'm going to pick what catches my attention. So first I see the 22 pages in 6 seconds, and I get an overview of the quality of graphic design, type of drawings, you know, what is their 3D capabilities, what is their Illustrator diagram capabilities in those 6 seconds, and the organization skills, because I'm going to be able to see the layout very quickly. If in that first view, I'm like, okay, this is a higher than average portfolio, I put it to one side, and then I'll go into it in detail. And when I go into it in detail, I'm going to try to figure out points that I would want to ask this person if I'm going to interview them. In the first read, if this project doesn't have the, let's say, the meat of the project there yet because it's ongoing, or because it's too big to just put in the portfolio because it would take up, you know, 80% of the portfolio, it's fine. I'm going to be skipping over to the next project until I see something I want to go into in detail. However, this is very, let's say, academic work. It seems like it's a lot of research, and it's very urban, and it's very small diagrams. However, if this had been an architecture project and it's a section of it and a rendering of a project that I'm really interested in, and then I don't see any more information, then I'm considering lacking. And I'm saying, well, where's the project? I only see 2 images, you know? So it can be a double-edged sword in that sense. But because this is a thesis project, it's very academic and research wise. And as you say, it's ongoing. For me, it was fine as a first project.
All right, so let's move on to the next page.
Okay, revive. Again, here, everything's so small scaled. You know, you'd like to think as a designer that people are going to be very, very interested in your projects, and they're going to go into the finer details of things. You need to think that people are going to look at your portfolio in full screen format. They're going to zoom in once in 100 views. And at the broader scale, I can see all the diagrams of, you know, thinking at an urban scale, from the macro down to the micro, and these diagrams that are processing different programs, different considerations of the site, that eventually start developing these generic volumes expressed in these section diagrams. So in that sense, I understand a process, a way of thinking in this project. I don't get all the program because I don't go in to read it, but the layout again is very successful. And you can see that there's a method of how to work a project. Now, if you go to the next page, then he goes straight into the plan, right?
Yeah.
And here, I don't care about the design because I'm not talking to the person. It's not being explained to me that very straightforward, because the previous image was too small scale, very dramatic, sort of little boxes. And now immediately the design is done. So now I'm judging more based on, okay, how does this person draw a plan, right? And it's about plot styles, and it's about quality of line weights and these kind of things. The plan and the section together with a couple of perspectives started to give me the inner workings of the project and how the look and feel for it a little bit, right? So in that sense, I appreciate the circulations and the sections. The graphic design selection of yellow is being continued in a kind of very smart way also. He's chosen not to use colors, highlighting the yellow and keeping the perspective in white. And that plays really well with the plan. I wish I could have a bigger section, more filled in with activity to really understand how the section is working. However, I'm judging here the plan as in, can you draw a good plan?
Here is one of the questions that I wanted to put up to you as we're discussing as well, is when you say in the last page, we were seeing, you know, his initial process of how he was coming on to things. And then here we see a large size of the final plan, and it's here. We have to think of a limit of the number of pages that we're putting up in the portfolio as well. So what I wanted to ask you was, what should be an ideal portfolio length?
Yeah, you can't do that because let me tell you, it's very difficult to narrow it down to a page number, because sometimes, depending on the graphic design, you can stream through 60 pages in a few seconds very easily. Or if it's a very heavily overcrowded design, you know, 20 pages might feel like a year. So it's hard to say that. That's why I said at the beginning, the number of projects that I feel more comfortable in saying. I would not show more than 6 projects. I think actually 5 is even pushing it. So absolute maximum is 6. Anything else more than 6, it's craziness. You should be able to show actually your design prowess, let's say, your capabilities of a designer in 3 projects. And then after that, perhaps just show a couple of good drawing techniques and representation techniques, let's say construction documents, detailing, or renderings, technical skills. So one is your design and showing your designs, and the other is showing your technical capabilities. So I would feel comfortable in giving a maximum number of projects, 6, ideally 3. Page numbers, that's really hard because it has to do with the layout and the graphic design.
Let's move on to his next project, which is Emergence.
This is interesting because this project for me, what I understand is their abilities to design in Maya, or, you know, I'm not very capable in these sort of like very advanced parametric, Patrick Schumacher, Grasshopper, Maya, Blender skills. I appreciate them and I know how to deploy them when we need them. I know when they're required, let's say, and then I can get somebody in the team to help me out with these things, but I don't know them by hand. However, I can see them and appreciate them. And I understand also why this becomes a very dark project and there's a black background. So for me, this project, Anuj is showing off his capabilities in this, let's say, realm in this software. However, the section drawings are hand-drawn. So it's an interesting mix of these things.
Yeah.
I still stand by that I do not prefer black backgrounds, okay? Again, the design, don't really understand what it's all about from these images. However, the most important thing in this project for me is the use of this software. And the only thing I can recognize the software is a small image on the left, which in the next slides, pages 11 and 12, we can start seeing the exploration of this software. And of course, in 13 and 14, we see where it ends up. However, I wish that that image was a little bit more predominant at the beginning instead of these small axos and sections.
As you stress on that point that it sort of pains your eye to look at the black background, and I was just switching back and forth from the page before and coming back to this one, and it really does, I mean, when you're going through it, it really does strain your eye, and when you just see all this black at one time. As you were saying, again, I used to use Grasshopper, but I haven't, that was it, and I haven't used it for a while. The first page for me was fairly easy to understand because I think it was, if you read through the whole thing, he sort of explained everything as well. So I think that was nice. The second page where he does his explorations is where he does catch my eye with what he's doing, but he loses me on a ideological level because I don't understand what is happening and why. But coming to the last page of this project, I don't particularly like this one as a page, as a composition of this, the whole thing. It's a breakaway from what he was doing till now. Like till now, when I was looking at his projects and looking at the portfolio, everything seemed very well organized. Everything seemed, the colors sort of were chosen very specifically and everything was making sense. Here, it feels like all of these images just have been put together. Again, he's tried on a few grids, but they just feel put together.
Two things there. You mentioned you didn't understand it at an ideological level. And let me tell you, most of the people that are going to be hiring you, so I'm speaking from the hiring perspective, we don't care about the ideology. We want to see what you're capable of, not necessarily what you're thinking. So again, I'm speaking from a small design-oriented studio. You come here and we teach you how to think. Very rarely will you go into a studio and to teach the studio how to think. You know, it's the other way around. However, we want to know what you're capable of. And this project, it shows like you're trying just to show off your capability in these programs. If you want to hire me for these things, just bear in mind I can do it. You know, that's what I'm reading. Because it's a classic example that if you have a hammer, then every problem it looks like a nail, right? And so in this sense, yes, perhaps this mixed use project, which doesn't look like a mixed use project, you had to design it with the software, and it's like, okay, well, let's just design it the most kind of Zaha-ish parametric way for that sake, not because that's what's required. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So successful in showing off the skills.
Let's now move on to page 25, Mars 1. Yeah. All right, first impressions about this project.
I'd like to know, okay, so first impression, very sort of sci-arc image. I'm impressed by the image. I know nothing about the project, except it's a collection of like pixelized volumes. You know, this for me as a studio, it's not a project I'm going to focus on because it might look like a shiny project, and Mars 1 competition, great to do competitions. It might sound like a great name, but particularly on my side, on the hiring side, not particularly interested in this project. I know that might sound surprising.
Speaking of being on the hiring side, when we talk about portfolios versus personal interview, are portfolios just sort of gateway to that personal interview, which would finally decide things, or how much percentage do you think each of them holds in the hiring process?
Oh, I would say 80% is your portfolio for you to be able to get the interview. And then in the interview, you need to have a really bad interview to not get hired. You're very close to getting hired, sorry. Or perhaps if there were several candidates, you were just not the best one. It doesn't mean that your interview was bad. It was just you're not the best one for the position. Maybe also you had some requirements during the interview process that others didn't have. Like, for example, visa status or expected salary. Maybe you were underqualified or overqualified. You had a really good portfolio, but they're looking for a project leader and you've never led a project, so they don't want to make that jump. The key to getting the interview is your portfolio. From your interview to getting hired, it's a small jump. You're very close.
I wanted to come to the next one, which is on page number 29, which is reconnect. And the reason I wanted to come to this one and discuss this one is all the portfolios that I went through for shortlisting for this video. One of the reasons that I chose the 3 projects were because I really like their presentation skills. And I really love how their portfolio, the final output came out. I didn't, again, as you said, going the pile of watching it in 6 seconds and seeing whether you like it or not. That is, to be honest, exactly what I did with the portfolios. I scrolled through them. But this page is sort of reminiscent. It's sort of a better representation of what I saw in most of the portfolios, where a lot of information was crammed in pages. Is a lot of things coming together here, and I shouldn't be able to talk about this because my portfolio was exactly the same and things were just crammed into the portfolio.
I've seen that video of your portfolio, yes.
I saw these portfolios and I was like, I should just take down that video before uploading any episodes of this series. Like, why am I even talking about this? But again, I don't work, sorry, I shifted my camera, yeah. But again, I don't work as an architect anymore. My portfolio is my YouTube page now. Yeah, but what are your thoughts on this?
This is a common problem, and we're going to touch upon this in the other portfolios as well. This is not the only project or the only portfolio that does this. And again, this comes back to the first thing I said. The ability to downsize, to compress, to identify what's the most important image here. One way to tackle it is to put everything in the project there. Boom. And that's what happens. Another way to tackle it is like, okay, I'll do one page which has all the process stuff. I'm not going to explain it. You're just going to be able to see it so you know that I do have a process. There was a process, and that's the evidence. That's like at the beginning, I can't remember what page it was, but the figures that had no text. And you said, look, they're not explaining what they're doing. I'm like, yeah, I don't care. I just like it that it's there, you know, because it's like the evidence. But it cannot all be like that. That's considering that there's one page which has process, and then there's the other page which has the outcome. And you hope that one page to the other connects enough in the observer's brain to put together the project in their head. That should be enough. So yeah, this is a common problem. And I think also the rendering skills in this one are very different. I think it's a different software that was used versus the other projects.
So the next couple of slides, the only thing that I wanted to discuss was the fact that the format that he had established right at the start of the portfolio is now gone at these end pages. And also I wanted to understand how much do last few pages where you are maybe exploring sketches and photography and other skills, how much does that matter in your final assessment of the folio?
It's appreciated. I don't think it matters. If it's not there, it's not like you won't get a call. And if it's there, it's not going to make a difference. But it's like having that photo at the beginning to see a face. It's getting to know the applicant a little bit better. So it's appreciative. In this case, the format being broken, I don't mind too much. Had there been a cover page to introduce these topics, that didn't happen. I don't know if the person that was crafting this portfolio, Anush, yep. If they had a limit in pages in mind for X or Y reason. But if you introduce a cover page, then you can break the layout because you're talking about something different. So everything within this new chapter should be or can be in a new format. But without the cover page, it's a little bit confusing.
All right, so we've sort of come to the end of the portfolio. Before we move on to the next one, I wanted your inputs on the following. So we have this in the format, we have scores on different areas of the portfolio. So let's go through one of them and let's go through all of them. The first one is first impressions. So on a scale of 1 to 10, first impressions, what would you score?
8. And that for me is a very high grade.
All right. Aesthetics and compositions.
Unfortunately, because of the black backgrounds, it's going to go put to a 7.5.
Ease of understanding.
I'm going to give an 8 again.
Length of the folio.
It was a little bit long. So in that sense, a 7.
Perfect. Now, just before we move on to the next portfolio, any tips that you would have for Anuj for his folio?
Well, I would go to the initial comments. Add social media, shorten it, try to avoid black backgrounds, cover pages, and perhaps be very strategic when you do your page layouts per project. So you say, okay, first page has a format and I show process and one striking image. Striking image is really important. And then the next one, always plan and section and AXO in the same locations. It seems that in this case, every project follows a layout, but the images are wherever they want to be, you know? Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a model, sometimes it's a section, sometimes it's an AXO, a perspective. They're all over the place. It's very appreciative when there is a very straightforward, aggressive format followed. It's very much appreciated for the eyes on the observer side.
So that was the end of Anuj's portfolio. Let's move on to our second portfolio, which is Armia's portfolio.
I have to say, I loved this portfolio.
I saw it. It was initially, I just saw it, and in the first impression, I was like, yes, this has to be discussed.
I mean, a sensibility comes across. Armia is clearly very artistically inclined. I sense that she's a sensitive person. She has amazing graphic design skills and representation skills, from the physical model making to the, let's say, what would be almost like a magazine or art quality level illustration. So really fantastic work.
Let's go over to her cover page. So this is the cover page that you were talking about, where she's made a composition of different buildings. So you're saying you didn't appreciate this as much?
Yes, and so I don't know all those buildings, so I don't know why they're there. My recommendation, put your name on the portfolio cover and that's it. Don't put images. Having said that, again, format. Even though this is the portfolio I love the most, this is the least successful format because this is into portrait pages put together. However, to be able to see both of them side to side, I have to go into the Adobe PDF. And I know that this wasn't an issue on the web, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's an important note. Offices don't like getting links to issues. We want to have the file stored in our human resources folder with your name and the date when you apply, so we can organize our applicants. We cannot organize applicants with links. That's because you would have to have a Word document with all the links to, and then they get broken. We want a file. And that's why most studio pages say send a PDF, and it has to be between 5 and 8 megabytes, no heavier than that, right? The format here is problematic because it's 2 pages, and InDesign always sets the cover page separate on top. So if I go into PDF and say, give me 2 pages side by side, they're in a bad format because the cover is there. So what I did then is I deleted the cover, which I do this often for people who send me portfolios like this. So bear in mind these things. It's much more successful to export as a spread, yes? And then do a 2-page spread of your cover as well. Yeah, the cover of the portfolio.
Anuj did.
Exactly. That's why I said that Anuj's was the most successful format-wise. Last thing about format, because Armilla is much more artistically inclined, and because she has this incredible illustrations, she appropriately has given a textured background. Normally, I would say never do that. Normally, I would say that will never work. However, she was very careful in having every single image work with that background, where it was transparency or it was not. And that took a lot of effort and work to make that work, which is clear that it makes sense that she is skilled in graphics.
So let's quickly go over her contents and the CV. All right, so she has 5 projects, and the other one is sketches. Even the 5th one is working drawings. So I think it perfectly fits into what you were talking about.
That's correct. I want to just make a point in the CV. In the CV, we want to be very, very technical. And if I'm reading the portfolio right, Armilla is a bit more on the artistic side. So that makes sense that there's some things lacking in the CV. I want to see dates. I want to see responsibilities, and I want to see activities for your work experience. So where did you work? What was your position called? Your role, the held position, and what were your activities? Otherwise, for me as a hiring person, it's useless information. Oh, I worked at OMA. Okay, what did you do while you were OMA? You worked as what? And how long were you there for? The year is not enough. I want a month in and a month out. So a bit more detail in that.
So let's move on to the next one. Here we can see the cover page that you were talking about for the project.
Yes. However, there's a problem. Okay, digitally, this makes sense had the portfolio been exported in a spread. That means 2 pages put together in one single image.
Yeah.
It's not. I fixed it so I can see both of them together and not one like that. But I see the line of the page break.
Yeah.
Otherwise, great. Little bit of information. One image that sort of summarizes the project. Loving it.
All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, so this was one of the very first things that caught my eye in this project. When you, as you said, that 6-second flip through, this is one of the first things that you would see, and it made me stop and look at the portfolio.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and this is why sometimes page numbers are a luxury, because you can do stuff like this, and you need to take advantage of this. So when you're flipping through this, you know, we've got double the pages more or less than whatever Anuj had, and it doesn't feel that much longer, and it's less projects, you know? So that's why page numbers are so variable. So here, Armilla does something very good. She does a cover image, which it's like a palate cleanser, you know, in a restaurant, at a high-end restaurant, when you're going from one dish to another, they come with a little sorbet, so you can clean your palate, so you can properly taste the next dish. That's what the cover image does. And then after this palette cleanser, from going from the CV to the first project with a little icon, not an icon, a little image, that's a summary image, and a brief description of the most important data, then she hits you with the most powerful image of the project, which is a compelling, beautiful illustration. And then once you get like hit with a hammer over the head with this image, Then she goes to the next pages to explain it with a couple of plans and a couple of diagrams. So it's a great format that she's establishing for all the projects. She's clearly a very skilled person, not only graphically, but in storytelling. She knows how to go about explaining a project.
Again, same, moving on to the next page as well. I really love the color choices, the color combinations that she's put up in her own portfolio. Even as you move from this page to the next one, the complementing the reds of the last page, you move on to this one, you have a blue, which perfectly complements the red. So I really appreciate the color composition and the color palette that she's chosen.
Very graphically skilled. The mixing of 3D and flat imaging with illustration techniques is very successful. I want to congratulate Armia for winning this competition. I hope there was a nice prize to it, and I can understand why it won. Design-wise, I read into it a little bit. There's these pause moments where she abstracts the dwelling into these smaller pods. So the pods become the interior within the exterior, which is encapsulated. So they play between inside, outside, activity and non-activity in a pod around the pandemic was really interesting. So congratulate Armi on that.
Perfect. Let's move on to the next project, which is the Spiritual Center. So this is her semester 6.
Yeah, I want to say something about these cover pages. I think, like I've said before, they're very important. I know that she's much more artistically inclined and doesn't want to clutter things, but I would appreciate a little bit more information in these covers. So what I would like to see, she's already put in title, Spiritual Center, year 2019. That's great. It says semester 6, so I know it's an academic project, and who the mentor was. You could put there a little bit more info as to the program, like square meters, and if it was individual or not. So still missing a few. I know that sounds very technical, but I'm sorry, I want to know if this was a project done by herself or in collaboration. I'm assuming by the graphics that it was her own, but you never know. This could have been a collab project that then she then fixed all the images for herself, right?
Yeah.
So again, the format is followed through. Cover, powerful images, then goes into details. Beautiful plans, brief descriptions.
Really beautiful plans.
Yes, and some images that almost look like a cartoon. This looks like if I was watching TV, these little perspectives where the play of light is very carefully placed. Now, I understand why the plans are so small, because it's this artistic sensibility to make it look like a little icon, but I would appreciate larger plans. I know they're not detailed. I know they're just zoning. But for me, they're a little bit small as information-wise. Again, beautiful AXO with the roofs lifted so you can see the interior dividing walls. Beautifully illustrated. It's a beautiful project.
All right. So we'll just skip the next one, which is the school.
That was my favorite.
All right, let's discuss it then.
I see the model here, and I actually went in to read the description for this. And again, it was about, yes, the triangle and the folding and the space, but there was a thinking about the user, the inhabitant, which are kids at school. So I was really mesmerized by the physical model of this and the treatment of the ground, the sand, and the sections were beautiful. So I had seen the previous plan in AXO in the previous project. Then I'm missing a plan. I'm really kind of dissatisfied that there's no plan in this project. So that's what I wanted to say about this. And I think this is my favorite project of the portfolio.
Like you can really, within this, you can really see her model making skills, and even the model she's blended really well with, like overlaying it with the collage of the students in the main image, and even here where she's removed everything from in between the trees to match with her textured background. So all of it, I think, really detailed, and loads of efforts gone into this. You can see.
I mean, it's gorgeous. It's everything in this portfolio is gorgeous.
And I mean, coming on to her page about sketches, seeing her own portfolio, I don't think she even needed to put this here. We knew how beautifully she can do things. And I think this goes on to about your last, where you said that it's just appreciated and you can just see some more beautiful things that she can do. But I would say this portfolio went about much faster than Anuj's portfolio, even though it's literally almost double the number of pages. It still went about much faster.
Yes, and I would say that if she's going to keep these images in the background, like I said, they're appreciated, they're not required. I would only eliminate the black and white sketches because it's the only place where she breaks the norm and her image has a background which blocks the texture that she's used in the background. So careful with that. The images of the food and the shoes are beautiful. Again, I want to congratulate Armia. She has fantastic design and graphic skills.
All right, so let's quickly go over our points and let's look at what you score her. Talking about first impressions.
I would give it 9, which is a very high grade.
Aesthetics and compositions.
9.5. Beautiful.
Yeah, I think this portfolio really deserves that. Ease of understanding.
Only because of the format problems which she had, which is a technicality, and because it's heavy, I mean megabytes wise, I'm gonna give it a 9. Otherwise it would be a better grade.
All right, and the length of the folio.
That's a good 9.
Perfect. So an advice that you would give to Armia for her portfolio.
Yeah, so again, Armia portfolio is what, as like Rem once told me, is horrendously beautiful. Yes, it's like amazing. So the only thing I would say is the CV part lacks a bit more detail. I think I mentioned that. Lengthwise is perfect. Illustrations are beyond perfect, but I would like to have seen a little bit more in like hardcore plans. The plans all seem like cartoons, and that's great. But you know, for depending on where you're applying, a large mixed-use development project of a developer can't present them a cartoon with a plan. They needed like a very hardcore serious plan. So maybe in the part of technical drawings, introduce some of those. That would be appreciated. And again, the cover was missing when you go from projects to technical drawings and additional work. So that would be my small bits of advice. Compress layers. The portfolio is too heavy as a file. And fix that layout issue. Yeah, export in spreads, not in single pages. So you get first the cover and then all the spreads. And if you want to be fail-proof, your cover should be a spread as well. Don't include pictures of architecture or a collage of architecture in your cover. Just include your name. The work inside your portfolio will speak for itself.
All right, so let's move on to our third portfolio for the day. This girl did not want her name to be out. And so I was thinking we could have called her something else. And as I was watching Harry Potter all day today and I was watching Bellatrix's videos, we're gonna just call her Bellatrix and Bella in short. Have you seen, I mean, are you a Harry Potter fan?
I've never seen Harry Potter. I've never seen it. I'm more than
Viviano, I don't think we can do this again.
Right, let's get back to Bella.
All right, so Bella's portfolio. Let's talk about the cover page first. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I'm assuming this is a drawing of hers because she mentions that she's in Paris, but at least I'm thinking it's her drawing. And the reason for that is that because after that, I see that instead of putting a photo of hers, she put an illustration of hers, which is fantastic. Yeah. I mean, that's amazing because it's very well done. So I appreciate that. I prefer still a photo, but I appreciate it. And I see a very well organized index of the work. She lists her competitions, which is great to see, workshops and other stuff and education wise. So starting off great, well organized, and the format is good. It's a landscape format. It covers most of my screen. It's not the most successful format. Again, that was Anusha's, but it works. Now, moving on to content. Here's the first problem with this portfolio. Way too much stuff.
How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 projects and then there's other works.
Exactly. And in none of the works, there could be small projects in there that are just shown for representation, but it's way too much stuff. Yeah. You remember the movie Jerry Maguire, where she says, "You had me at hello." By the third project, you should have your person who's reviewing the portfolio interested in. If not, they're not going to be interested, no matter if it's 20 projects. Don't expect them to be interested by the last project, because you're going to start off also with the strongest stuff that you have, not end with the strongest stuff that you have. This is very important. Sometimes there's different ways of organizing your work. Sometimes people want to see a progression chronologically and start off with first semester, then fourth semester, and then final project at the end. That is a way to do it, but you can then, it's risky that the person that reviewing your portfolio can be put off by the first couple of pages and saying, no, this is not what we want. Careful with that. I suggest starting strong. Strongest stuff you have first. If it can be organized chronologically, great. But back here to Bella, too much stuff. And if we go into the projects, the too much stuff continues in this. Now, I have to say, beautifully illustrated, beautifully, I mean, really, Bella can be a very successful graphic design artist by her drawing skills. However, again, it's too much information crammed into a page. And what happens is that each drawing gets small and then it gets cluttered. And then I just glance over and say, oh, beautiful images. Seems like there's things being thought through and worked out. I'm going to skip to the next page. I'm not going to zoom in.
Yeah.
And that's what happens.
Exactly. That is what I'm looking at. I mean, they're all beautiful and they all look good. Individually, they're amazing sketches. But I think, again, as we move on to the first project only, which is the Indo-French 2019, and we sort of see all these sketches together, and I think it makes the page a little bit crowded, and you might not want to zoom in and look at everything because it will take a lot of your time to just go through everything here as well.
Moving on to the next project, the cover page is greatly appreciated. It lays out the required information. It shows a beautifully nice done collage. It's more or less the same technique that Amiya, that she followed, but she put it in the center, which didn't work with the spine, but we can fix that. So it's the same technique, and it's, guys, do this. This is great, okay?
Yeah. I was about to say, like, visually, it's really nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Then we go into the project because it's an urban scale. There's a lot of urban plans, which urban plans, look complex. And when you scale them down, they're hard to understand. But it's an urban project. That's how they work. And it goes in the next page to more urban analysis. And then there's some sectional elevations, which are very well illustrated. However, I don't quite understand what the project is, because I don't know if that was a building that was refurbished, or if that was the design of the building, or if it was an analysis of the building. And honestly, I didn't go in to read the text, and I'm not going to. I'm going to skip to the next project. Because up until now, what I can see is great graphic design skills and a little bit cluttered. So I'm trying to look for a project now where I'm interested to go in and to see design skills.
For this one, one thing that I really love and appreciate is the fact that every project has this, again, it's not just a whole image, but it's somehow a smaller image that comes up for a project and sort of like an icon for that project. And I love how she writes the numbers it's the smaller things that really make it for me. The 3 written with Mangal in the next project.
Yes, the graphic design. But however, here, now I'm missing the cover page. I understand that this page functions as a cover page, but it's too cluttered with stuff. It has a plan. The cover page should be palette cleansing. Again, it's a little sorbet to understand that you're going from one project to another. It can have a project image, but it should be small, and it should leave a question mark open, which means it interests you to try to figure out what is this project about, so you go into the next pages, but it doesn't give it all away. A plan definitely gives the project all away because it's telling you exactly how it works.
Yeah.
Having said that, this is my favorite project from this portfolio, the manga. However, I have some issues with it, not design-wise. I really appreciate the little icons on top, which illustrate problems or considerations of the site, which then the project tackles. However, one of my pet peeves, first of all, repeated plans, never do that. Never repeat the same image or similar images. And the other one is renderings with skewed verticals. Guys, always correct the verticals. Now, moving on to the next project, Roti. Again, I don't want to repeat stuff that we've already mentioned, but I want to highlight something that she knows how to use. Yes? And that's the color white. If we look at page 21, the hand-drawn drawings that are overlaid on this sort of cream beige color know how to use white. And this is very important. That's why when I said white background or light colored backgrounds or like a light gray or light beige is very important, because then you have the ability to use white. When you have a white background, you can never use white because it disappears. So here, she really emphasizes that she knows the power of white and these little hand-drawn drawings. Yeah, so that's very successful in this project.
Yeah, again, but the page is a bit busy.
Very cluttered, too much stuff going on. So the ability to compress, minimal, identify the strongest, and what communicates the project and its process the clearest and fastest way with the least amount of drawings.
All right, let's go on to the next project, which is the Riz H2O Brava, if I'm reading that right.
Yes, this project, I have issues with the documentation of this. So page 25, where she goes into this project, pretty much seems that it's in keeping with her skills and graphic design that is laid out for the whole portfolio. But if we go to page 27, which is the next page, again, here we have 2 pages numbered for one spread. Yeah, so it's okay. These are renderings done in a different software with different technique.
This is Lumion. If I'm not wrong, this is Lumion. The sky is very identifiable.
It looks like it, but also she immediately broke the format. If you're looking at this at full screen and you're skipping through like you would in the first round, all of a sudden the images go like this and they're in the center, which is really unsettling, and they correspond to a completely different technique. The views of the camera angles are all skewed. I don't like these images at all. I would take out this project if you don't have images that coincide with the rest of your portfolio. Just as a publication in itself, as like a one whole unit thing. It looks like something different.
And so these are her other works, and what are your thoughts here?
Yes, well, first of all, there's a page 45 has an interesting hand-drawn element there, which might need to be blurred on YouTube. I'm not quite sure. However, I do think that she needs to explain a little bit more what was going on in the next page, because I don't know if that was a research project or was it just her traveling. It seems like it's a cover of a magazine there. Was she doing photograph for a magazine? Perhaps it's something I need to go back and check in her CV. And it's in between 2 pages of illustrations. So 45 is illustrations and 49 is again art and illustrations. So it seems to me that like this topic number 10 or index page number 10 is a little bit messy, and like in the end just a whole bunch of stuff went in. So I would reorganize this, and remember, it's appreciated, but it's not necessary. And overall, the portfolio is too long. Yeah, I would take out the interior design, and I would take out Riza Browa if you don't have illustrations instead of those renderings immediately, just to shorten it a little bit. But it should be shortened a lot more still.
All right, so let's quickly go over the scores that you would give Bella. So first impressions.
Okay, first impression is a solid 8.5. I can see strong graphic design skills.
All right, aesthetics and compositions.
Another 8.5.
Ease of understanding.
That because the images are way too small, and because she breaks format several times, once with the cover pages, and then with the changing of from drawings to renderings, and the length, some projects have multiple pages, some don't. I would say it's an 8.0.
And length of the folio?
Again, I'm tempted to give 7 point something, but I'm going to say 8.0.
So an advice for the portfolio?
My advice for Bella and her portfolio is to immediately shorten it and to introduce the cover files for each project and organize the additional work if you keep it. Again, it's not required. If you do those three things, you're going to end up with a much more compact, concise, and stronger portfolio. Don't think that more is better. Less is more. This applies here.
All right. Okay. So now that we've come towards the end of this video, do I need to ask which your favorite portfolio was out of all three? I think both of ours was the same. It was Armia's that we really loved, and beautifully made portfolio, Armia. Not that Anuj's or Bella's was not beautifully made, but I mean, if you're just looking at all three, I think Armia's is the one that really shines.
All three are really good, but hers was above and beyond.
Yeah, like would you call her for an interview after this?
Yeah, I would love to, but I don't know if I would love to, because I think she would be a person. She reminds me of an ex-student of mine that interned and worked for us as a junior architect for 2 years almost, Laura Duktenite. She's from Lithuania. And the reason why I asked her to come and collaborate with us was because she would push conceptual thinking and graphic design skills on the sensitive artistic side. So I think wherever she goes, she would be a great element to help push a team to always take care for this artistic side and these artistic sensibilities. That's why I would hire her. I would hire her to push my team to not be so damn square and engineering all the time, and think about the softer side and more intricate and more subtle sensibilities.
Perfect. All right, Viviano, thank you so much for taking out the time for this. It was lovely having you, and you had some great insight like throughout the discussions as well.
I hope it's helpful, actually, because when you asked me to provide you with my portfolios, I had to go digging into them. The whole topic of portfolios came up. And so I actually am teaching a course on portfolios this December break. 23 people signed up in 1 day and a half, like the tickets flew. So I'm probably going to do one in English. So it's a one-on-one.
Yeah, I was about to ask, is it in English?
Yep. 5 weeks. I think it's 8 sessions in 5 weeks. It's Saturdays and Mondays. So people who listen to this, if this is uploaded in time, pay attention to my social media. I'll post it and you guys can participate.
Also, you can send me the link. I'll put it down in the description below as well, so people can go and check it out.
And that was it, you guys. Now, I won't make this outro long because I know you've been watching for an hour. So I'll just quickly get on with things. Okay, first things first, I want to thank all three people, Anuj, Armia and Bella, for providing their portfolios. And as a thank you for letting me use them and letting me showcase them, I'm giving you access to all of my bonus Patreon videos that I've made till now. So you can go and check out all of the content that I've made, and that content includes the portfolios that Viviano made for both OMA and for getting into SciArc. So you can go and check that out. Also, if you want to send in your portfolios for the next episode of Portfolio Review, you can do so at baportfolioreview@gmail.com. Also, if you would like to support this channel or would just like to see some bonus videos, including the bonus footage from this video was actually 2 hours long. I edited it down to 1 hour. So we have a lot more content. I'm going to put it up on Patreon. If you want to access that, you can become a patron. The link will be down below. And yeah, that is it. Don't forget to like, to share, and to subscribe to Blessedarch. I will see you guys very soon with more content. Bye-bye.
One more thing, sorry. That is why many times you send your portfolio and you don't get an email or a call back. It's because that's the jump. You're gonna send a lot of portfolios, you're gonna see the portfolio many times, but very seldomly will you get asked for an interview.